I didn't have problems with communications. What I think is interesting is that for a country whose official language is English, that in fact I'm told there are 26 different languages and many dialects spoken here, but I had really no communication problems whatsoever. Obviously, some speak more or less English than others, but these nurses know their business. The housekeeping staff, the folks that handle your food for you, we had no communications whatsoever, no communication problems whatsoever, I should say. Well, it's an interesting question as to cost here versus back home. A good friend of mine is an orthopedic surgeon, and I considered having him do this work if, in fact, I was going to have a hip replacement done, a total hip replacement. The going rate in the U.S. is about $40,000 to $45,000 per hip. My total cost, and I say total because the way that it is handled through Dr. Bose and the hospital and Mohan and HealthBase, is that this is all done as a package price, excluding only airfare and essentially food at the resort that you conclude your rehab at for the last 5 days. So everything other than that, which is stay in the hospital, the surgery itself, everything having to do with all the doctors and services and food and you name it in the hospital, cost me about $7,000 total. Do the math. I actually heard about Apollo hospitals as a result of making a decision about Dr. Bose. And of course, once I decided on Dr. Bose, I did research the hospital pretty extensively and was pleased to find out that the Apollo Hospital group was the first in India to be approved by the government as a center of excellence, has affiliations with Johns Hopkins in the U.S., and continues to be accredited to the highest standards in the world. I heard about HealthBase as a facilitator by essentially going onto the internet, probably Googling medical tourism, if I remember correctly. Came up with actually 3 or 4 different medical facilitators, asked each of them for a quote, and of course they all offer free quotes. And as I began to do further research and looked at testimonials of people that had used the medical facilitation companies and come over and actually done the surgeries, one of the things that really stood out to me was the personal touch that Mo at HealthBase was credited for, and I will say that it's my experience that that is very much the case. My experience with HealthBase was good in that, in fact, one of the reasons I chose to go with HealthBase was, although I had gotten quotes from each of the medical facilitators or medical tourism companies that I asked for a quote on, when I mentioned that I felt that it was an important criteria to speak to Dr. Bose, HealthBase had Dr. Bose on the phone within 3 hours, and HealthBase handled every detail of my trip, including the airfare, not the airfare, but the air accommodations, the air arrangements, if I will. And of course, that led me to Apollo Hospital. I would rate them as excellent. Of course, they're the one that I chose to work with, so I don't have a basis for comparison beyond the initial stage. But if I were to come back here and have my second hip done, I wouldn't do it any other way. Again, I don't have a frame of reference, but if I were to come back and have my second hip done, I would have no reservations whatsoever about the services that I receive from every single person, top to bottom, in this organization. Absolutely recommend Apollo and HealthBase and Dr. Bose to anyone that is in the position that I found myself in. People who are skeptical about going to India for medical treatment should do some research first and foremost, and should understand that although we're conditioned to believe that the best of everything is to be found in the U.S., the reality is that the best isn't always the most expensive. And I will say, coming to India for surgery is not for everyone, but certainly if you find yourself in a position where you're outside of the healthcare system in the U.S. Or Canada, that you're absolutely looking for top-level service at an incredibly affordable price, you should seriously consider India for your solution. This experience with Apollo is my first experience with healthcare overseas. So I don't have a basis for comparison, but I have absolutely no complaints whatsoever, so I would rate it at the highest level.